When people ask me why I'm still searching for the right superhero RPG after all these years, the answer is actually has nothing to do with dice systems or character sheets. It's because superheroes matter, especially in this day and age. Real superheroes, characters like Superman or Spider Man, aren't just powerhouses throwing punches at villains. They're moral exemplars. They remind us that doing the right thing isn't always easy, and sometimes it comes at a cost. Superman isn't great because he can lift a mountain. He's great because he tries every single day to be a good man. And sometimes he fails, but he keeps trying. One of my favorite moments in superhero comics comes from Amazing Spider Man 537, where Captain America tells Spider Man something that has stuck with me for years. It doesn't matter what the press says. It doesn't matter what the politicians or the mob say. It doesn't matter if the whole world decides that something wrong is right. The nation was founded on one principle, above all else, the requirement that we stand up for what we believe, no matter the odds, no matter the consequences. When the mob and the press and the whole world tell you to move, your job is to plant yourself like a tree beside the river of truth and tell the whole world, no, you move. And that right there is why superhero stories matter. Because superheroes have a unique power. They can reach into the imagination and the heart and remind us what courage, integrity, and moral conviction look like. And that's why I've spent decades looking for the right superhero role playing game. Because when we sit around that table playing these characters, we're not just rolling dice, we're exploring the idea of what it means to be heroic. And that brings me to today's topic: why I decided to back Mutants and Masterminds Fourth Edition. Now, here's something that doesn't happen very often. My friend Luke Millette, who years ago was actually the co-host of Midnight's Lair, back when it was an audio podcast, was the one who brought this Kickstarter to my attention. Now, normally it's the other way around. Luke was jokingly called me the equivalent of his RPG drug dealer over the years. I've talked him into that many games. But this time, he sent me a message that basically said, "Hey, have you seen this?" And I'll admit my reaction was a mix of three things. First, well, Luke is excited about this, so I should at least give it a look. Second, maybe they fixed a few of the things that always bothered me about the system. And third, well, I've backed every edition since the first one, so I guess I'm in. Although, I'll admit something kind of funny. During the Kickstarter, I actually backed out and rejoined twice. And the reason for this is, it's quite simple and practical, really. Kickstarter prices look very different when you convert them into Canadian dollars, and when you have to check with your wife first. No one wants to get killed. But after looking at the pledge levels and deciding on the campaign starter tier, I decided to take the plunge. My relationship with Mutants and Masterminds goes all the way back to the first edition. I first encountered it at my friendly local game store, a place called BD Cosmos. BD is French for bande dessinée or comic book. And this was only a couple of years after I had discovered Silver Age Sentinels. At the time, I was actively searching for a modern replacement for V&V. And Mutants and Masterminds caught my eye, partly because I had read that the designer, Steve Kenson, was himself a fan of villains and vigilantes. That got my attention. The book looked streamlined, the title was great, and I was aggressively curious. But even then, something felt a little off. The system still held onto a lot of its D20 DNA, and in some ways it felt like a superhero game that had grown directly out of 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons, which is what it really was. And while it was clearly a good design, it didn't quite click for me. Part of the reason for that was the enormous shadow cast by villains and vigilantes. For nearly 20 years, my friends and I had played campaigns using that system. And V&V did something the latter superhero games rarely try to do. It lets you discover your character instead of designing them. Random power generation, unexpected abilities, wild combinations. Characters weren't engineered, they were discovered. And in many ways, that felt closer to how superheroes actually appear in comic books. Very few heroes get to choose their powers. They wake up one day and their lives are forever changed. By contrast, Mutants Masterminds always felt like it was trying to solve a design problem that I personally never thought was a problem. Balance, carefully engineered characters, power level caps. And while those things make perfect sense from a game design perspective, they were fixing something that I had always seen as a feature, not a flaw. Now, my friend Percy, or P. Mikey, had a very different experience. When we participated in the playtest for Mutants and Masterminds Second Edition, he seemed to absolutely fall in love with the system. As a matter of fact, our group actually served as official playtesters, and our names appear in the credits of the book. Percy loved the power construction system. He loved the balance. He loved the damage save mechanic instead of hit points. And using that system, he created a campaign setting called Vanguard City. It was one of the best superhero campaigns I've ever played in. And Percy is, without exaggeration, the best superhero RPG game master I've ever known. Far better than I am. But I guess life happens. Work definitely happens. And with those factors, energy, enthusiasm can run out. And as a result, over time, Vanguard City quietly faded away. We haven't played in that setting in about 15 years. And I honestly miss it. And I think all of the players involved in that campaign feel the same way. So when I noticed that Percy and I had independently backed Mutants and Masterminds 4th Edition, one thought crossed my mind. Maybe, just maybe, Vanguard City might live again. Now, I'm not naive. At this point in my life, I no longer believe I'm going to find the perfect superhero RPG. But I might find a good one, an acceptable one. And Mutants and Masterminds has something important going for it. It's popular, it's well supported, and it has a very large community. That makes it a viable system to adopt, even with all its warts. But there's another reason I backed it. I want to learn the system alongside my audience, not as an expert, not as someone who claims to know everything about it, but as someone genuinely exploring it. Is that a little risky? Yeah. But it's also more honest. And honesty has always been something I've tried to maintain on this channel. So instead of presenting myself as the authority on Mutants and Masterminds, I'm inviting you, my community, to learn it with me. So if the idea sounds interesting to you and you'd like to follow along as we explore the system together, you might consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming episodes in this little experiment. Now, as of the time I'm recording this episode, the Kickstarter for Mutants and Masterminds 4th Edition has already closed, so it's a little late to jump in that way. However, I'm confident that once the BackerKit Pledge Manager opens to the public, interested folks will probably have the opportunity to come in as late backers. But in the meantime, there is a way to follow along. I'll be starting with the 4th Edition Playtest Rules, also known as the Origins Edition. Those rules are currently available through Green Ronin on their online store, as well as DriveThruRPG. And I'll make sure to provide a link to both of those down in the doobly-doo for the episode. So if you're curious about the system and you want to explore alongside me, you can grab a copy and follow along as we learn how this game actually works. Now, for me, giving this game a fair shake means a few things. It means actually learning the rules, running the system, even if it's one-shots and test drives, understanding what the designers were trying to achieve, and maybe most importantly, setting aside my own preconceived biases. especially my long-standing dislike of point buy systems. Because if I'm honest with myself, there's a chance I might discover this game is good enough. Good enough to adopt, good enough to build a campaign around, good enough to become what my friend Tim Knight, the Acrobatic Flea, calls a forever campaign. I'm 58 years old now, and while I hope I still have many years of gaming ahead of me, the truth is we all have a limited number of campaigns left when we reach this stage of life. So maybe it's time to stop searching for perfection and instead find a game that's good enough to help me create great memories with friends, with family, and yes, even the fans of this channel. And if Mutants and Masterminds Fourth Edition turns out to be that game, then maybe a few old worlds might live again. Vanguard City might breathe new life. Maybe. Maybe Port Dominion will find a new home. Then again, something entirely new might be born. But I'll tell you something honestly. I really hope it works. Because the thought that it might not, that worries me more. Well, I think we can call this one done. Until next time, when I open the doors to Midnight's Lair once again, be safe, take care of yourselves and those you love, and do good.